Welcome to our channel, where exciting stories from all over the world are discovered. Today, we're going to listen to an ancient, mysterious, and meaningful story, the story of Noah and the flood. Have you ever heard of this great flood? A flood not only swept away everything, but also opened a new beginning for humanity. This story comes from one of the oldest and most influential books in the world, the Bible. According to the book of Genesis in the Bible, Noah is the main character in the story. He lived in a time when humanity had fallen into greed, selfishness, and sin. God, the Creator, saw the fall of mankind and decided that, in order to save the world, he needed to cleanse it. And that's when the cataclysm was born. But in the midst of that chaos, Noah, a righteous and faithful man, was chosen by God to undertake an extraordinary task. He was given a mission to save his family and the animals, to recreate the world after the flood passed. This story is not only a religious legend, but also a symbol of rebirth, of faith and resilience. And in particular, it doesn't just exist in the Bible. Similar stories of the Great Flood also appear in many different cultures, from Mesopotamian mythology to Indian legends and even Asian folklore. So, how did Noah accomplish this seemingly impossible task? And what happened during the cataclysm? Join me on a journey to dig deeper, and you'll see that behind every violent wave is a meaningful lesson for us today. The reason for the cataclysm *. So, have you ever wondered, why did this cataclysm occur? Why did God decide to cleanse the world with a huge flood, sweeping away everything? To understand this, we need to go back to the time before the cataclysmic flood occurred. The Bible tells us that, at that time, people were living in sin. Greed, selfishness, and acts of violence have permeated the land. People no longer live by moral rules, no longer fear and worship God. Crime and evil have taken over the earth, and everything seems to have reached an irreparable point. In the book of Genesis, it is written, God saw that the wickedness of men had increased on the face of the earth, and every thought in their hearts was evil. That is the reason why God decided to punish the world with a great flood. But not all are neglected. Of the people who lived on earth at that time, only one was considered righteous and honest, and that was Noah. In fact, the flood is not only a punishment, but also an act of mercy and justice. God wants to create a new opportunity for the world, from which life can be reborn and start again from a cleaner foundation. So, what made God choose Noah? Noah was a righteous man who lived according to God's word and always trusted in his guidance. God saw in him a pattern of faithfulness and morality, and so, Noah became the only one chosen to save humanity from destruction. You may also be wondering, can only the cataclysm be the way to clean up the world? This question will be explored in more depth in the following sections. But before think about it, are we living in such a sinful world? Are we forgetting the moral values and respect for nature, as humans used to do? Noah and his mission. Noah's story is not simply about a cataclysm. It was a journey, a great destiny that Noah had to complete. To better understand Noah, we must find out who he was and why God chose him in a world full of sin and depravity. In the book of Genesis, Noah is described as a righteous man who lived a virtuous and faithful life to God. In particular, he was not affected by the fall of the society around him. When everyone pursued their earthly desires and was no longer concerned with spiritual values, Noah remained faithful and lived by God's teachings. This made him an ideal model of righteousness in the eyes of God. In contrast to the bloody and greedy world, Noah was still the only one who kept his faith and respected God's rules. Therefore, when God decided to destroy the world in the cataclysm, God chose Noah to be the most charismatic person capable of saving life and righteousness. The question is, why Noah? Why didn't God choose anyone else? We can contemplate that, in a world full of people who no longer hold faith, Noah was the only one who had the ability to do what God wanted. He was not only a virtuous man, but also a man who was willing to do God's will no matter how great the challenge. But Noah's mission is not simply to live a moral life. The Lord had given him an immense and important task, to build a ship. But not an ordinary ship. This is the ark that Noah must build to save his family and the animals from the impending cataclysm. A building requires not only strength, but also patience, resilience, and absolute trust in God. Imagine, for a long time, Noah had to work non-stop, building a huge ark that he had never seen before. This is not only a physical challenge, but also a mental challenge. People around him did not believe in his prophecy. They saw him as a weird person, someone who couldn't explain why he would do things that seemed absurd. They laughed at him, mocked him, and didn't believe that a cataclysm would actually happen. However, Noah did not waver. He persevered in continuing the work given to him by God, even though he did not receive support from anyone. This is a clear demonstration of trust in God and determination not to give up on the mission that has been entrusted to him. Noah didn't just build the ark, he also had to convince everyone in his family and community to believe his words, even if they didn't understand why he had to do so. Throughout this process, Noah faced countless difficulties. The first is the mistrust from everyone around him. Next are the challenges of resources, time, and energy. But what is worth mentioning is Noah's soul. He not only built a physical ship, but also built a firm belief in things that have not yet happened. He was faced with a very complicated task, a task with no clear evidence, only faith in a promise from God. In a world where everyone was engrossed in earthly pleasures, Noah was the only one who listened to God's call, working for a noble purpose. Noah's story is not only a lesson in perseverance and faith, but also a testament to the power of sacrifice and absolute loyalty. One of the questions we can ask is, if it were us, would we be able to do like Noah? In a world full of challenges and doubts, do we have the courage to hold on to our beliefs, even when no one believes them? Noah's story gives us the answer that, when we have faith and determination, nothing is impossible. Noah's ark and animals. But Noah's mission is not just to build a ship. He also had to carry out another important mission, to collect animals from all over the world and put them on a ship to preserve life during the cataclysm. When God gave Noah a task, he showed him how to save the animals. He told Noah to bring on board a pair of each animal, male and female, so that after the flood, life could be reborn on earth. Noah had to collect all kinds of animals, from large ones like elephants and giraffes to small ones like insects and wild birds. To do this, Noah needed not only intelligence and talent, but also patience and resilience. The process of collecting animals is definitely not easy. This is a huge challenge, because not only do countless animals have to be found, but they also have to get them on board safely. Noah had to have a specific plan, how to move and take care of them accordingly. Not only that, but ensuring that the animals live in harmony on the ship is not an easy task. With all these animals, Noah's Ark was not only a means of transportation, but also a symbol of salvation. Every animal has an important role to play in sustaining life on Earth. These animals would bring their species with them to reincarnate the world after the cataclysm. One question is, how was Noah able to collect all these animals? The Bible does not describe this process in detail, but it can be understood that this is a miracle from God. He guided the animals to the ship and got on it, miraculously. This story not only shows God's wonder, but also shows that, when you do God's will, anything is possible, no matter how unbelievable it may seem. How did the cataclysmic flood take place? The whole ark was ready, and Noah's animals and family were all on board. So at this time, how will the cataclysm take place? The Great Flood in the Bible is described as a huge flood, engulfing everything on the ground. The rain fell non-stop for 40 days and nights. The water rose so high that it flooded every city, village, and even high mountains. This is not an ordinary flood but a great, global event that swept everything away. At this time, only Noah's ark was floating on the water. The survivors, only Noah's family and the animals. Feelings of fear, loneliness, and physical and mental challenges overwhelmed Noah and his family. They didn't know how long the flood would last, whether they would be able to survive, but one thing they did know was that they had to persevere and hold on to their faith. Consequences and significance of the cataclysm. When the water has risen, it has swept away everything that humans and animals have built and created. The Great Flood is not only a destruction but also a rebirth of the world, opening a new chapter for humanity and the creatures on earth. But the consequences of this flood are not only what we see right before our eyes, but also contain profound lessons about forgiveness, hope, and faith in the future. The cataclysmic flood lasted 40 days and nights, but after the water receded, the earth completely changed. What is left is just a new foundation on which all life can be reborn. Noah's Ark became a symbol of salvation. As the waters began to recede and the ground dried up again, Noah and his family and the animals stepped out of the ark, witnessing a whole new world. A world that is no longer dominated by sin and greed, but instead a new opportunity to recreate and start over. This story, although a religious legend, carries an extremely powerful message of rebirth and hope. In every challenge, no matter how great, there is always a possibility to start over, to recover and to seek the good in this world. Life is never completely destroyed, it can always be revived, just as the animals on Noah's Ark were reborn after the cataclysm. A special detail in the story is the rainbow. When everything was settled, God promised Noah that he would never again bring such a flood to earth. The rainbow appears in the heavens as a sign of this promise, a promise that no matter how many trials and tribulations may occur, salvation and faith in the future will always exist. The rainbow is a symbol of hope, of healing, and of God's promise that the world will never be destroyed again. God forgave Noah and his family, allowed them to start over, and moreover, He also promised not to harm the world again with such a flood. This is not only a promise of God to Noah but also a promise to mankind, a promise that there will be rebirth after every failure, every mistake. When the ship landed on top of Mount Ararat and Noah stepped out, he not only felt life being revived, but also a responsibility to the new world he and his family would build. Noah's story does not stop at the cataclysm but also opens a new beginning for humanity. After leaving the ship, Noah and his family are tasked with recreating the world, rebuilding relationships, and developing values of morality, justice, and love that humanity had previously forgotten. This is an important part of the message of the story. What do we do when we get a second chance? How do we live to ensure that the world will not repeat the mistakes of the past? The story of Noah in culture and history. The story of Noah and the Great Flood is not only found in the Bible, but there are also parallels in many different cultures and legends. This shows the power of this story to be etched in the minds of humanity through the ages and around the world. One of the clearest examples is in Mesopotamian mythology, where there is a story of Utnapishtim, a character similar to Noah. In this legend, Utnapishtim was also ordered by God to build a ship to save lives from a cataclysm. Utnapishtim's ship also carried a pair of each animal, and after the flood receded, he became the only survivor on earth. In addition, in Indian mythology, the story of Matsya, an incarnation of the god Vishnu, is also very similar to the story of Noah. Matsya saved the animals and the sages from a great flood by putting them on a ship. This shows a clear resemblance to the biblical story and suggests that the image of this iconic global flood has been recreated by mankind in various legends. The story of Noah has similarities not only in cultures but also in ages. It has been propagated through the centuries, through generations, and still has a profound influence today. It is not only a religious story, but also a part of the cultural heritage, a story of life, sacrifice and salvation. Messages and lessons learned. Noah's story contains many valuable lessons that we can learn in modern life, even though the world has changed a lot compared to his time. 1. Perseverance and belief in yourself. Throughout his journey, Noah not only faced physical challenges, but also struggled with his own beliefs. He persevered in building the ship, even when people around did not believe him, even mocking him. This perseverance was not only an important factor in helping him accomplish his mission, but also a great lesson for us today. Sometimes in life, we will also encounter challenges and skepticism from others. However, if we are consistent and confident in our path, we can overcome any challenge. 2. Forgiveness and restoration. The story of Noah also teaches us about the power of forgiveness. God forgave Noah and his family, helped them start over, and promised never to strike such a cataclysmic flood again. This is a lesson in tolerance and reproducibility after failures. Although life is full of trials and sufferings, there is always an opportunity to start over, and to rebuild important values. 3. Responsibility for the world and life. Another lesson that Noah's story brings is about our responsibility to the world and nature. Noah's Ark not only saved his family but also the animals. This shows that not only humans but all living things are valuable and need to be protected. This sentence reminds us of the protection of nature, of maintaining the balance of life on earth, to ensure that future generations can live in a peaceful world. Conclude. The story of Noah and the flood is not only an ancient religious story, but it also contains profound lessons about faith, perseverance, forgiveness, and responsibility for the world. It has survived for thousands of years and is still valuable in our lives today. As we face life's challenges, remember that, like Noah, we can always be born again, start over, and find hope in the darkest of times. So, what do you think of this story? Do you feel any profound messages from Noah's story and the cataclysm? Leave your comments under the video and don't forget to share if you feel this story is meaningful to you. Noah's Ark and the animals. We have come to the very important part of the story, the construction of the Ark and the collection of animals. This was not only an integral part of Noah's journey, but it was also a testament to God's care for all living things on earth. When God commanded Noah to build the ark, he was given the task of not only creating a physical structure but also the salvation of living beings. The ship is not just a simple boat but a symbol of hope, salvation, and new beginnings. The ark will be the place to protect Noah's family and all the animals from the cataclysm. The Lord asked Noah to make the ark with very specific characteristics: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high, with 3 floors, and windows on the roof. This suggests that Noah must have been very meticulous in carrying out this task, not only to ensure that the ark was strong enough, but also that there had to be enough space to accommodate all the animals. A giant building. Imagine a huge ship, built in the middle of a society that has no knowledge of modern shipbuilding. Noah had to use rudimentary materials such as wood to build a building without any modern technology or machinery. This requires not only a technical understanding but also extraordinary perseverance. Throughout the construction process, Noah had to face skepticism and ridicule from those around him. They could not understand why he had done this, because in their minds, the great flood that Noah was talking about was impossible. They did not believe his warnings and did not understand why he had to build such a huge ship. However, Noah continued his work, persevered in following God's instructions. The construction of such a large ark must have taken a very long time, and this required Noah to maintain faith during that long time. The ship is not just a physical structure, but it is a symbol of patience, sacrifice, and belief in things that have not yet happened. Collect the animals. Once the ship is complete, Noah's next task is to collect the animals. The Lord instructed Noah that he needed to bring a pair of animals on board, both wild and livestock, and also to bring insects and birds. This is indeed an extremely huge and complex task. Not only did Noah need to collect animals from all over the world, but he also had to make sure that every species had enough space and food on board to survive the cataclysm. There is a question that may pop into our minds: how was Noah able to collect all these animals? The Bible does not go into detail about how Noah did this work, but according to the legend, the fact that the animals came to the ship was a miracle. God led the animals to help Noah carry out this seemingly impossible task. Animals, even from all over the world, come to the ship on their own and go aboard, creating a beautiful image of divine obedience and guidance. These animals are not merely creatures that need to be protected from the cataclysm, but they also carry with them a part of the natural world, which is an indispensable part of rebuilding life after the flood. The story of the animals on board is a message of harmony between humans and nature. It reminds us that every living being on earth is valuable and responsible for maintaining the balance of the world. Taking care of the animals on board. Once all the animals had been collected and boarded, Noah and his family were responsible for taking care of them. This is not an easy task. Raising and protecting a large number of animals on a ship is not simple. Each animal has unique needs, from food to habitat. Noah and his family faced an extremely difficult task of keeping the animals healthy and safe during the prolonged flood. The job of caring for animals in such a confined space is not only a physical challenge but also a lesson in patience and love. As Noah and his family cared for these tiny creatures, they were also contributing to the preservation of life and ensuring that after the cataclysm passed, the world would have a chance to regenerate, not only for humans but also for animals. This story is not only about saving animals from floods, but also emphasizes the importance of maintaining harmony with nature. When we take care of nature, we are protecting everything the world has to offer, from animals to natural ecosystems. This is especially important in today's context, when the issue of protecting animals and the environment is becoming more and more urgent. The magic of harmony: when different animals live together on a ship, they not only live in a narrow space, but also have to learn to survive and get along with each other. This can be seen as a miracle. A giant elephant and a small bird, a strong lion and a gentle rabbit, all have to live in the same space and live together peacefully. We can draw a big lesson from this: harmony and understanding among species. In Noah's world, this harmony is created by God's guidance and protection. However, in our world, this harmony can be created by mutual respect and love. It is a reminder that, despite our differences, when we know how to respect and care for each other, we can create a strong community. The story of Noah's Ark and the animals is not only part of Noah's journey, but it also contains many profound messages about protecting nature, about responsibility for living things, and about maintaining harmony in the community. The animals on board are not just simple creatures, they represent all life on Earth, and protecting them is an important part of Noah's mission, as well as ours today. How did the cataclysmic flood take place? So, when the ark was finished, the animals were on board, and Noah's family was ready. What happened next? How did the cataclysm, one of the greatest events in history, take place? The flood, as described in the Bible, was not an ordinary rain but a full-blown event in which the waters of heaven and the waters of the earth were broken. Genesis 7 verses 11 to 12. This means that the cataclysm is a combination of two factors: rain from the sky and water from underground. Both of these factors contribute to a major flood that no one could have imagined. In this section, we will delve into the details of how the cataclysm unfolded, the factors that influenced this event, and the effects it caused. Rain from the sky. The cataclysmic flood began with a continuous rain that lasted 40 days and nights. This was not a light rain, but a relentless torrential downpour. The sight of rain falling from the sky, falling into a vast space, covering the whole earth. The devastation that the rain caused was not only physical, but also mental. This rain brings with it the punishment and the erasure of all that has gone wrong on earth. According to the Bible, the rain began on February 17th of the 600th year of Noah, and lasted for 40 days and nights. Every day, the rain fell more intensely, washing away what was at the bottom and gradually flooding the ground. The water from the sky did not stop pouring down, seemingly without stopping. This rain not only caused flooding but also total destruction, when all living things on the earth were swept away by the power of water. Water from the ground. In addition to the rain from heaven, the Bible describes another equally important event, which was the breaking of water from underground. This is an important part of the cataclysm, because it helps to increase the strength and depth of the flood. Water from underground veins, mysterious sources of water that man has never known, flared up and flooded the earth. This not only made the cataclysmic flood stronger, but also made the passage of cities, villages, and all living things inevitable. Imagine that water not only comes from the sky, but also erupts from under the ground, making the world a huge ocean, with no dry spots. Everything is submerged in water, there is no trace of what once existed. Floods cover the entire earth. When water from heaven and earth combined, the cataclysmic flood became a global disaster. According to the Bible, the water rose so high that it covered the mountains, the water rose 15 times higher than the top of the mountains, Genesis 7 verse 20. This means that the water has overflowed, covering everything, leaving nothing behind. The highest mountains, distant lands, are all submerged in the sea. We can imagine this scene as a vast sea of water, with no shore, no fulcrum, no life. Everything around is swallowed up, and no one can escape the wrath of nature. This is the end of a world full of sin and greed, a world in which God has decided that there is no room for wrongdoing. The only life left on the ship, only on Noah's ark, his family and the animals survived. The ship was well prepared, strong enough to withstand the power of the flood. It has become the most beautiful lifeline in the world, where life is protected, and a symbol of hope in the midst of a disaster. God protected Noah and the people on board, keeping them safe while the entire outside world was destroyed. During 40 days and nights of continuous rain, not a single house or city was intact. All living things on the ground, from humans to animals, were swept away. This was a total destruction, with nothing left but Noah's ark. The safety of the ship was not accidental, but the result of faith in God and obedience to His commandments. This is not only a miracle but also a reminder of the power of obedience and faith in salvation. The Great Flood was not just a brief downpour, but an event that lasted for 40 days and nights. 40 days may be a long time for a person, but for Noah and his family, it was a real challenge. Living in a cramped space, with no sunlight, and only the company of family and animals, the feeling of loneliness and stillness is definitely an integral part of their experience. Moreover, their patience during this time was also tested. They don't know how long the flood will last, if the world will return to normal, or if they will have to live like that forever. But all the while, they held fast to their faith in God, believing that He would save them and lead them into a new world where they could start all over again. The water receded, and the end of the cataclysm after 40 days and nights, the rain stopped and the water began to recede. The Bible describes that God sent the wind to blow through the earth, causing the waters to begin to recede. However, the water does not recede immediately. This process lasts for days. Noah's ark had been adrift for a long time, and they couldn't be sure when they would find a place to land. One of the key moments in the story is when Noah releases the dove for the first time to check if the water has receded. The pigeon couldn't find a place to park and returned to the ship, suggesting that the world was still submerged. It was only when the dove brought back a branch of olives that Noah knew that the water had receded and the ground had dried up. This was a sign of rebirth, that the world was ready for a new beginning. Conclusion: the Great Flood is an event that is not only destructive but also the rebirth of the world, an opportunity to rebuild everything from scratch. Rain from heaven and water from earth combine to create an unimaginable destructive power, but Noah's ark is a symbol of hope, of salvation. In a world submerged in water, only the ark is the only place where life remains, and that's where Noah's family and the animals find safety. The cataclysm, with its devastation, also contains a powerful message of forgiveness, of faith, and of resilience from all trials. It reminds us that, no matter how difficult times we go through, there is always an opportunity to start over, to be reborn and to start over. Consequences and significance of the cataclysm. After the cataclysm ended, the consequences were not only a physical change in the world, but also a profound change in the spirituality and morality of humanity. The cataclysm is not just an event destruction but also an opportunity for a rebirth, a new beginning, and a lesson in forgiveness, faithfulness, and respect for God's creation. In this section, we will explore the consequences of the cataclysm, both physical and spiritual, and the profound meaning it left for the world. 1. Total destruction. The Great Flood created a total destruction, wiping out everything that once existed on earth. All the animals and humans that were not on Noah's ark were swept away and destroyed in the floodwaters. Cities, villages, ecosystems, and every trace of civilization are swallowed up in the water. As the waters recede, a whole new world begins to form. The ground has no signs of life before. However, this is not the end, but a new beginning. With the protection of the ark, the animals and Noah's family survived, and now, they are the seeds for new life on earth. All they have to do is rebuild the world from scratch, based on what's left after the disaster. This symbolizes recovery and the beginning of a new cycle. 2. The meaning of salvation. One of the powerful messages of the cataclysm is salvation. Noah's ark was not only a physical means of protecting life from the flood, but also a symbol of salvation in religious belief. God chose Noah because he was a righteous man, and through him, his family and the animals were saved from destruction. The ark, with all the beings within, represents God's protection for those who trust and obey him. In a catastrophic setting, Noah's ark is the only place where there is life, and this shows that loyalty and obedience are important elements in a relationship with God. Not only does God punish the world for wickedness, but he also opens up opportunities for new life, for the salvation of those who are willing to listen and obey his word. This is a great lesson in faith and sacrifice, about trusting in God's protection even in the darkest of times. 3. Lessons of rebirth and new beginnings. One of the profound meanings of the cataclysm is the lesson of rebirth and new beginnings. Although the flood destroyed everything, after the water receded, the earth came back like a blank page, and the world had a chance to regenerate. Noah and his family are tasked with recreating the world by multiplying and developing animals. This is not only about sustaining life but also about rebuilding civilization, starting from the foundations of justice and morality. We can also see the cataclysm as a metaphor for moments in our lives where we feel destroyed, lost, or defeated. After these challenges, we can start over, rebuild our lives, and learn from the mistakes of the past. The cataclysmic flood is a reminder that despite the devastating trials, there is always an opportunity to get up, start over, and look forward to a new future. 4. Punishment for sin. The Great Flood is a punishment for the world for the sin and wickedness of mankind. Before the flood, the Bible described that, "The Lord saw that the wickedness of men had filled the earth, and that every thought in their hearts was only evil." Genesis 6 verse 5. People have lived in greed, violence, and injustice, and these actions have damaged the order and peace that God has created for the world. The cataclysmic flood is a form of punishment from God for these sinful acts. It is not only an act of indignation but also a wake-up call. God does not tolerate evil and will act to defend justice. However, it is important that, even in this chastisement, God allows a chance to start over. Only Noah and those who followed him on the ark could have survived, and this was a reminder of standing up for justice and obeying God's commandments. 5. Symbol of the covenant. An important consequence and significance of the Great Flood was the creation of a new covenant by God with Noah and all living things on earth. After the Great Flood ended, God promised that he would never destroy the earth with another flood. This is manifested by the sign of a rainbow that God gives, as an eternal sign of the covenant. I will make my covenant with you, and I will never again let a flood engulf the earth. Genesis 9 verses 11 to 13. The rainbow is a symbol of hope and promise that never changes from God. It represents His protection of all that lives and is a sign of commitment to a brighter future. Every time we see a rainbow in the sky, we can remember this covenant and the belief that no matter how many trials there is always God's protection and an opportunity for salvation. 6. Restoring a relationship with God and nature. The cataclysmic flood also provides an opportunity for humanity to restore its relationship with God and nature. After the flood, Noah was commanded to make a sacrifice to God to give thanks for his salvation. This is not only to express gratitude to God, but also to remind people of the importance of living in harmony with nature and protecting life. This is a reminder of the connection between man and God and every living being in the universe. The cataclysmic flood teaches us not only about the consequences of sin and greed but also about humility and responsibility for the life around us. After the disaster, the earth needed the care and protection of the living beings themselves, and that is the task that Noah and his family underperformed, as well as our mission today. Conclusion: the Great Flood is not only an event of destruction, but also a great lesson about salvation, rebirth, and the relationship between man and God and nature. The aftermath of the cataclysm was a radical change in the world, but its significance was a new beginning, an opportunity to start over with solid moral and spiritual values. The story of Noah is not only a story of a flood, but also a reminder of faith, of justice, and of respect for all life on earth. The story of Noah in culture and history. The story of Noah and the Great Flood is not only a religious story but also has a profound influence on many cultures and histories of countries and peoples around the world. Over thousands of years, this story has been told in various forms, from books, art, literature to cinema and music. It becomes a symbol of the power to reach out, transcending the limits of religion and cultural tradition to bring messages of humanity, of faith, salvation, rebirth, and the relationship between man and nature. In this section, we will explore the far-reaching influences of the story of Noah in different cultures and how it has been interpreted through history. 1. The story of Noah in religions. The story of Noah and the Great Flood is an important part of the Bible and is told in Genesis. This is the story of God's punishment for the world, and also the story of salvation, with Noah as the one who stands up for life according to God's instructions. However, the story of the cataclysm does not only appear in the Christian Bible, but also takes similar forms in different religions and cultures. Judaism. The story of Noah is found in the Jewish Bible, Tanakh. Specifically in the book of Genesis, just like in the Christian Bible. However, in Judaism, this story not only has a meaning of God's salvation but is also a symbol of the relationship between the Jewish people and God. The doctrines of obedience and justice are important themes in this edition. Christianity. In Christianity, Noah's story is seen as a model of faith and obedience to God. The Great Flood and Noah's Ark are seen as a symbol of salvation through faith in God. In particular, many preachers see the cataclysm as a preparation for the coming of Jesus, with Noah as a model of the righteous man standing firm in the face of wickedness. Islam. In Islam, the story of Noah, is also recounted in the Quran. Of course, the details may differ slightly, but the basic meaning of salvation through faith in God remains unchanged. In Islam, Noah is considered one of the most important prophets, and his story emphasizes the importance of obeying God's instructions and emphasizes that only those who follow God's way can be saved from disasters. Indian religion. Some scholars argue that the story of Noah has similarities with other legends in Indian culture, especially with the legend of the god Matsya in the Mahabharata epic. In this story, Matsya, in the form of a fish, saves the sages and species who survived a cataclysmic flood caused by the god Vishnu. Despite the stark differences, the appearance of a life-saving God during a great flood bears interesting parallels to the story of Noah. Noah's story, regardless of religion, conveys a message about the importance of faith and obedience, as well as God's power to protect and save those who live uprightly. 2. The influence of the story of Noah in folklore and mythology. In addition to religion, the story of Noah has also influenced many folklore and mythological legends around the world. The story of a cataclysmic flood that covered the earth and a single man and the surviving creatures who were saved has been recorded in many legends of different peoples. The legend of the Great Flood in Chinese culture. In Chinese culture, there is an ancient story about the Great Flood that is mainly told in Sima Tian's epic, chronicles, such as saving living beings and rebuilding the world. In this legend, Dai Vu is not the only one who survived, but he was the one who saved the world from the flood by controlling the flow of water, a form of wisdom, to protect the nation. North and South American legends. In the cultures of the indigenous tribes of North and South America, there are also legends of a cataclysm. For example, in Hopi legends, the cataclysmic flood was a challenge for the gods, and only those who lived rightly, adhering to the principles of the gods, could be saved. This legend is the same as Noah's story of salvation for those who live virtuously. Legends in the African region. Some African cultures, such as in the culture of the Yoruba tribes, also have legends of the cataclysm. In these legends, gods and heroes are often tasked with protecting and saving creatures from the destruction of water, reflecting an idea similar to the story of Noah, with values of protection and rebirth. 3. The story of Noah in art and literature. The story of Noah and the flood has been widely used in art, especially in painting and literature, as a model of salvation, justice, and the relationship between man and God. Western art. Famous works of art such as Michelangelo's painting, The Deluge, and the works of painters such as Peter Paul Rubens have depicted the scene of the cataclysmic battle vividly and powerfully. These paintings not only reflect the devastation of the flood but also convey profound messages of punishment and salvation, with Noah's appearance as a symbol of faith and obedience. Western literature. The story of Noah has been exploited by great writers such as John Milton in Paradise Lost, using images of the cataclysm to reflect themes of sin, salvation, and God's strength. The flood is not only an event of nature but also part of the debates about freedom of will, obedience, and the antagonism between good and evil. Modern literature. In today's era, the story of Noah continues to be adapted and recreated in many literary and cinematic works. For example, Darren Aronofsky's film Noah, starring Russell Crowe, is a modern and imaginative interpretation of this classic story. The film exploits elements of mythology and science fiction, creating a new image of the cataclysm, where the character of Noah is not only a worshipper but also a warrior in a world that is slowly collapsing. 4. Noah's story in film and television. The story of Noah and the cataclysm has also become a fascinating topic for filmmakers. The 2014 film Noah, directed by Darren Aronofsky, attracted strong attention and sparked a lot of controversy. The film is not only a story of salvation, but also portrays the mythological and humanistic elements of Noah's life. The epic scenes of the cataclysm and the legendary ship made a strong impression of salvation and rebirth in the devastating backdrop of the disaster. Noah's story has also appeared in many other television shows, cartoons, and artworks, ranging from mainstream religious versions to creative, imaginative, and sci-fi expressions. Conclude the story of Noah and the cataclysm crossed religious boundaries and became an integral part of many cultures and histories. From major religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam to ancient legends in Asia, the Americas, and Africa, this story has brought lessons about salvation, justice, and the relationship between humans and nature. It continues to live on in art, literature, and cinema, bringing powerful messages of restoration, rebirth, and hope to future generations. Messages and lessons learned from Noah's story. The story of Noah and the cataclysm is not only a historical or religious event, but also contains insightful, humanistic, and doctrinal messages. It is an endless source of inspiration, with valuable lessons about faith, sacrifice, justice, and the relationship between man and nature. From this story, we can draw many lessons to apply to modern life, helping us to be better, live responsibly and respect true values. 1. Faith and obedience. One of the most important messages from Noah's story is great trust and obedience to God. Noah was a righteous man and his faith was the foundation of his and his family's salvation. Although God's warnings about the cataclysm may seem unbelievable to those around him, Noah did not doubt and decided to follow through with determination. The lesson from this is the importance of trusting in the guidance of the right values, even if it may be difficult, and obeying with perseverance. This applies not only in religious relations but also in our daily lives, when we face challenges. Faith helps us to be steadfast, and obedience helps us overcome difficulties, always aiming for a good goal. 2. Sacrifice for others. Noah was not only a man of salvation, but he was also the one who was responsible for protecting and caring for all living things. When Noah received the order to build the ark, he not only thought about the salvation of his family, but also worried about the survival of the animals. Having to provide food and care for thousands of animals during the flood is a huge responsibility. Noah sacrificed many personal things to carry out this task, because he understood that the lives of other creatures were just as important as his own. The lesson here is to sacrifice for the common good and for the lives of other beings. In life, we sometimes have to sacrifice our comfort to protect, care for, and help others. Sacrifice is how we show love and compassion for our community and the world around us. 3. Respect and protect nature. The story of Noah is not only meaningful about human salvation, but also has a powerful message about respect and protection for nature. Noah's care and protection of the animals on the ship is a clear demonstration of man's responsibility to nature. In the modern context, this is more important than ever, as we face the major challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental pollution. The lesson from Noah's story is that we need to protect and preserve nature for future generations. Humans are not the sole owners of the earth but the ones who protect, care for and maintain the balance of ecosystems. Protecting animals, trees, and the environment around us is the responsibility of each of us. 4. Justice and consequences of sin. The Great Flood is a form of punishment from God for human sin and wickedness. God saw the evil, greed, and violence in society and decided to use the flood to rebuild the world. While this punishment may seem cruel, it also reflects a message of justice and the consequences of wrongdoing. The lesson from this is the importance of living right and fairly, and understanding that wrong actions will always have consequences. Whatever the circumstances, justice is always served, and every action we take has an impact on the world around us. Therefore, living with ethics, fairness, and mutual respect is essential to building a good society. 5. Rebirth and new opportunities. After the flood is over, the world is reborn. Although the flood devastated them all, then the earth came back in a new way, with a new opportunity to start over. Noah's story is not only a story of destruction, but also a story of rebirth and new opportunities. After the disaster, the world can recover and return to good moral values. The important lesson from this is that nothing ends if we learn and start over. Whether we encounter failures or difficulties, we always have the opportunity to be reborn, learn from our mistakes, and look forward to a brighter future. Rebirth is not only physical recovery but also spiritual and moral development. 6. Gratitude and covenant. After the great flood was over, God made a covenant with Noah and all living things on earth that he would never again destroy the earth with a flood. The sign of this covenant is a rainbow, a symbol of hope and eternity. This story is not only a lesson in salvation but also a reminder of gratitude for what we have received from God and from nature. The lesson from this covenant is that we need to be grateful and cherish what we have. The covenant is not only a commitment between man and God, but also a promise of protection and respect for noble values. We need to preserve these relationships and not forget that every day we live on earth is a precious gift. 7. Patience and resilience. The story of Noah is also a testament to patience and resilience. Noah never stopped trusting God's word and patiently carrying out the work he gave him even though there was no guarantee of success. Throughout the years of building the ark and witnessing the skepticism of those around him, Noah held fast to his faith and did not give up. The lesson from this is the importance of patience and resilience in life. In all circumstances, whether difficult or challenging, we need to maintain our faith and persistently pursue our goals. Success doesn't come immediately, and sometimes we have to overcome a lot of difficulties before we get what we want. Conclude. The story of Noah and the great flood gives us profound messages about life, faith, sacrifice, justice, and the protection of nature. It is not only a religious story but also an inspiration for us to live better, to be righteous people and to respect the true values in life. Whatever the circumstances, the lesson from Noah's story reminds us that there is always an opportunity to be born again, to learn, and to start over, as long as we hold fast to our faith and act in the path of morality and justice. Conclusion. The story of Noah and the cataclysm is not only a religious myth, but also an endless source of inspiration, containing profound lessons about faith, sacrifice, the protection of nature, and the relationship between humans and the universe. The powerful messages from this story continue to inspire us in modern life, encouraging us to live better, to love, to protect the world around us, and to constantly rise above difficulties. If you found this story interesting and meaningful, don't forget to support the video, comment, share your feelings about the lessons from Noah's story and the flood, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for watching, and hopefully the messages from this story will help you live better every day. Wish you always keep your faith and walk on the right path. See you in the following videos.